All right, here we go with our next story, the Mighty Persian Empire, from Cyrus the Great to Darius, and kind of also want to tell you a cool little story about our post office today, actually, that relates to it. So this is just a common image of Cyrus that we've seen many times before, and I'm just going to kind of get right to it, get to our first slide, and tell you the things I want you to know about the Persian world. So we've looked at a lot of civilizations up to now in this class, right? And they're impressive, whether it was the ancient Egyptians over here, right? Or the Hittites, or the Hebrews, the Mesopotamian civilizations. And they've been impressive. But when we look at this map, folks, everything you see in green on this map represents the Persian Empire. It dwarfs everything else we've talked about. Their capital is going to be over here, the city of Persepolis, right? So you see this key word over here that you need to know, Persepolis. And they have a number of leaders, but we're not going to talk about all of them. I want to focus, of course, on this first name up here, Cyrus the Great, who is their emperor between about 550 and 530 BC, roughly. And most of this expansion is because of Cyrus. And the question is how did he do this? And yes, he's going to have a strong military. Yes, he's going to know how to be effective using that military, but he realized that wasn't enough. And the key to Cyrus is this. When he expands, he goes to the people and he basically says, you have a choice. You can fight me, Cyrus, mighty Persian emperor, in which case you'll probably die. Or you could join me, and if you join me, this is the key, you could keep your own way of life, your own customs, your own traditions, your own religion, and you could just maintain that. Yeah, you're loyal to me. Yeah, you have to pay taxes to me, but you can keep your own way of life. I'm not going to force you to be something else. That was pretty effective. And it was also effective in the sense that he really meant it. And a really classic example of this is when Cyrus goes to Babylon, right? So he moves into Babylonia. When he goes into Babylonia, if you remember from my previous lecture, if you haven't seen it, kind of the lecture on the Assyrians and the Neo-Babylonians, I talked about the Babylonian captivity, when the Jews were held captive in the city of Babylon. Well, when Cyrus gets there, the Jewish people see him, and essentially, according to the accounts we go by, the story is that the Jewish people went to Cyrus and said, "We don't want to be here. We want to be in Jerusalem." And Cyrus says, "Okay, go back. You're free. Go to Jerusalem. Go rebuild your temple. Go, practice your religion, your monotheistic religion, even. Not a problem." And so this example is kind of oftentimes used because it's a good example to show that what Cyrus did, he actually meant. So I think that's pretty important and interesting to note. Now, the other real quick thing before I get on to what happens after Cyrus, because he does most of this expansion, and you want to know kind of, again, this method he uses is, their capital, again, is the city of Persepolis, and I did want to briefly mention where this is today. This is modern-day Iran, and actually a lot of people from Iran today like to be called Persians, and so that's just kind of a little bit of a side note there, but it's just kind of interesting. So Cyrus is going to die. He's going to be replaced by a man named Cambyses, as you can see here, our next kind of key word there. They're not father to son, so it's kind of a slightly different family line. They're related, but not, directly father to son. You don't really know much about Cambyses. I mean, most of the expansion takes place under Cyrus. Cambyses will conquer Egypt for the Persians, so that's pretty significant. So the area of Egypt here you can see in green, that's going to be conquered by the Persians as well. And then we get to Darius or Darius. I've heard his name pronounced a couple different ways. And he's going to rule from about 521 to 486. And Darius is significant because he's, by now most of the expansion has been done. He's very organized, apparently. He runs the civilization very effectively. I'll show you a picture of him in my next slide here. But one of his most famous things he does is builds this road called the Royal Road. It's 1,700 miles long, right? And it had these post stations, places to stop and so forth, 111 of them. Apparently, this road was so effective that it was built so well that when the Romans come in later, the Romans will still make use of this royal road. And it was very important because think about what you could do with the road. You can move supplies, people, military, and it was a very well organized system. He seemed to govern very efficiently. He also seemed, and this is just kind of something to file for a future lecture of ours, uh, there's a bit of a micromanager. There's one story I read once about how he even micromanaged, trees and where trees would be planted. And if they weren't planted in the right way and in the right place, he would be upset with his advisors and so forth. So just kind of keep that point in mind that he was a bit of a micromanager and all this stuff. And that will be important in a little bit later lecture. Another just kind of little fun thing about this is a little random trivia. But this road, if from building this road, and the Greeks who were going to be contemporaries of the Persians, we're going to talk about them. There's a Greek historian named Herodotus, and he talked about how this road was used. And let me show you what he said in here. He says the following: "Not snow, nor rain, nor heat, nor night keeps them from accomplishing their appointed courses with all speed." Referring to the people who took the routes on the royal road. Now, if you heard that and you listen to it again, not snow, nor rain, nor heat, nor night keeps them from accomplishing their appointed courses with all speed. If you've ever heard the post office motto in the United States, it's that whole, not rain, no snow, keep the postman away. That's where that comes from, actually. So just a quick little side story. If you ever wonder where the heck that saying came from, it came from Herodotus, who used that quote to describe this royal road. All right, so now what? Well, here's just a quick image of Darius, just one sculpted art we have of him. And then the question is, what now? So what's next? So Darius continues to rule, and then here we get to this, very interesting point. This map is showing us the extent of the Persian Empire by 513 BC. Let's just say 500 BC for round numbers. And 500 BC is a really nice date for us because in 500 BC we have, we've seen all these different civilizations come and go, Egypt and the civilization Mesopotamia, the Hittites, the post-Dark Age folks, right? And 500 BC is a nice package because now the entire area of all these early civilizations we've been talking about are all under one leader or one control, the Persian Empire. Meanwhile, as all of that is happening between about 3000 and 500 BC, there are other things developing as we move further west, right? As we move further west, we cross the Mediterranean, the Aegean Sea over here, right? This Aegean Sea between Greece and Asia Minor. Other civilizations are developing. And so while we pause here with the Persians, we're not completely done with the Persians. We're going to eventually do another lecture talking about what happens with them. But to understand that, we have to understand what's going on in the West, the cultures that are developing in the West, eventually getting into the Greeks, which will eventually get us to this remarkable story of an entire war between the Greeks and the Persians. All right, so that's it. That's what you need to know about the ancient Persians. Hope all that's clear. If you have any questions, please let me know. All right, have a great day, everyone. Thank you.